So over the last few weeks, we've had a lot of rumours about Conor McGregor potentially coming back to the UFC. Obviously, he was talking about how he wanted to fight on the White House card. We know that's not happening anymore. But he's still going on Twitter talking about how much he wants to fight in this summer. And I've got a bunch of opponents that he could fight next. And I'm going to go from least likely to most likely. And in terms of who I would want him to fight as well, I'll talk about that. So I've got quite a few names there. I think I've got like 10. I didn't even count them up, to be honest. We'll start with the least likely. Now there was some talk about it on interviews recently. I don't think it will happen just because the name value, even though it's not exactly like he's a bum, but I got Carlos Prates. This would be a pretty sick fight, if we're being honest, but I think Prates would probably chin him. And another reason why I don't think it's that likely is that he is fighting JDM in May. So even if he does win that, it's going to be a while till he turns around. And I do think Conor wants to fight in July at International Fight Week. And why have they got this AI fucking thing here? That fight did not happen, but I've got Prates here. It would be a sick fight. I do think Conor might want to come back at welterweight, even though I do think even if he fights a guy at lightweight, they could just have them weigh in at 170. Like even if he fights a lightweight, they could just weigh in at 170. I don't think that it's that big of a deal, because Prates would be a lot bigger than him. But there was some rumours about this. Conor said he might fight a no-name next, and then Prates popped up saying that there's been some speculation and that he thinks the UFC offered Conor the fight against him. But I don't know. Obviously, he's fighting JDM soon. If he gets sparked out in that fight, we know that it's not going to happen anyway, him versus Conor. So I thought I'd just put him on it just because there was some rumours, but I doubt it happens. Next one, we've got another welterweight. I do think this is more likely because of the history, but because of the stylistic matchup, I don't think the UFC would want it, and it's Kamaru Usman. This would be a massive fight, Kamaru versus Conor. That would easily well, obviously a Conor fight's easily going to headline a card, but this would be a fight that people are hyped for. The only problem is, Kamaru, there is a potential that Conor just gets held down for 5 rounds, which is, I don't think the UFC want that, which is why I think this is lower. Well, which is why I've got this lower. Obviously, at a time where Kamaru was champ and Conor was coming off a win versus Cerrone, and he was talking about how he's going to stay at welterweight, and he was calling out Masvidal. Obviously, back then, there was a chance that this could happen, and it could have been for a title, and it would have been a crazy hype fight, but that was like 7 years ago now. And by this point, it would still be a big fight, but again, there's that factor that he could just hold Conor down. I think he'd be able to pretty easily. He did it to Buckley, and I don't think Conor's wrestling and grappling ain't even as good as Buckley's, if we're honest. So, and he's smaller, so I don't think this one is gonna happen. But again, because their history and how they've talked about wanting to fight each other in the past, I thought I'd put it on there. Now, after these two, I don't think Carlos Prates or Kamaru Usman will happen. The rest of these I could definitely see happening if Conor is to come back and fight again. And the first one I got is Dan Hooker. Now, I can see this happening very easily. You know, it's a fan-friendly matchup in terms of the styles. We know it's going to be entertainment. We know it's going to be a banger. Dan Hooker's not he's a well-known name. It's not like he's a random bum that no one knows. He's fought all the top guys. He is coming off a couple of bad losses, which could, make the UFC not want to go with him. They might want to go with a guy coming off a win, more hype. Even though it is Conor, so it's going to be hyped either way. That's a problem. I don't know what the UFC would want to do. Would they want to get some guy that's coming off a couple losses, so it might be like, does he deserve the Conor fight? Or do they just want to go with someone coming off a few wins, and it would be hyped as fuck, even though there's a chance Conor loses? I don't know, we'll have to see, but Dan Hooker's definitely a possibility. I don't think this is going to happen, again, that's why it's so low, but if it did happen, I don't think anyone would be that surprised that this is the fight that got made. They could do it at 170, both guys would accept that. I'd probably pick Conor, even though we have no idea how good he's going to look after 5 years off, but I think when they, even a non-peak Conor, I think his striking is going to be just clean, faster. Dan's chin ain't what it used to be. Doesn't take damage as well. Obviously, he could just knee Conor's fucking head in or something like that, but we'll have to see. So yeah, Dan Hooker. Still, I don't think this is going to happen, but this is still a decent option. Same as this next one, I got Rufy. He's literally just a younger Conor, but he fights so much like Conor. I think the commentators make it out that he fights a bit more like Conor than he actually does. But there is the similarities there in their fighting style and on the come up. Obviously, he did lose to BSD, which kind of halted all his hype. but he knocked out Fiziev, as you can see there, and now he's fighting Chandler in a few months. And if he knocks out Chandler, who's been rumoured to fight Conor for so long, then obviously there's hype there. It would be a sick fight. You can tell they want Rufi to be at the top of the division by the matchmaking he's got. If he can then beat up Conor, he's then the most hyped guy that you can have fight Conor. If he's then the most hyped guy that you can have fight for the title after that, or fight a top guy after that. If he knocks out Conor, we've seen it before. Once you beat Conor, like the star power is just there. It's just more people are interested, more people want to see him fight, more casuals and everything that are going to tune in. So I think this is a real possibility, Rufi versus Conor. The only problem is, again, he is fighting in June. I think Conor wants to come back in July, but maybe he ends up coming back later at MSG or something like that, now that he's not on the White House card. But yeah, Rufi versus Conor. He's the next one I got on here. Now these next two, I kind of can group them together. There is a slight bit of more history with one of them, and it's Masvidal and Diaz. Obviously Conor's fought Nate twice. They're 1-1. The fights were like 10 years ago now. But it would be cool to see the trilogy. I think this is a real possibility. I think Nate's more likely than Jorge, or George, whatever his fucking name is. He talked about he wanted to come back and fight Conor in the White House or something like that. Conor, I think he said he'd accept or whatever. We knew it wasn't going to happen, let's be honest. We don't need these two washed unks fighting in the main event of that card, but I definitely think it could happen. The Nate one, again, like I said, trilogy would make sense. Crazy history, two of the best fights ever, realistically. Like, entertainment-wise, they were both crazy. The upset in the first one with Nate, second one was a war. Conor got the decision. So I think Nate's probably more likely than Masvidal. Just I don't know how much Nate wants to come back and fight again. I think Masvidal wants one more in the UFC. I'm not sure, but yeah, those two can kind of get grouped together. You know, all those guys were at the top around the same time. There was all the hype of them fighting each other. Conor and Masvidal potentially happening in lockdown. If lockdown didn't happen, it's potentially happening in 2020. The fight still should have happened, but it didn't. Even in the Apex, would have been fucking banger. Would have probably been better because you could hear the shots landing. But I'll go with the Jorge and Nate. These two, if we're getting to the point now, if these fights happened, I'd understand. I would be like, yeah, I can see why they made that fight. And yeah, Jorge and Nate, I don't even need to explain these two anymore. This next one's going to be a bit of a weird one, but I got JDM. If he beats Priors, he probably should be a bit lower down on this. I do think Nate and Jorge would be more likely to get the fight than JDM is. But if he wins against Priors, I then don't know where they would go with him after that. Well, I don't know who he'd be fighting next. I don't know what they'd match him up or anything like that, when they would. And I think just Conor would be a sick fight. A sick, hyped up fight. It's a chance to get JDM. If JDM beats Priors and then Conor, instantly the Islam rematch is there. Even though he's not beaten any grapplers and not proved that he's improved his game, I don't think anyone would care. I think everyone would still be hyped anyway. And yeah, I think JDM, he's on the pound for pound list. Fucking hell. Don't know how. But I think this would be a sick fight. Yeah, like I said, he probably should have been below Jorge and Nate, but fuck it, whatever. He's actually an active fighter in the UFC, I guess, so I guess you could put him, he should be higher. And yeah, JDM versus Conor, potentially. Now, how many have I got left? I got 4 more left. I think his next opponent, if he is to come back, is one of these 4 guys. All the other guys that I listed, it could happen, but I'd be way more confident in it being one of these last 4 guys. And the first one I'm going to go with, it would be a rematch. It's Max Holloway. Obviously, lost last night to Charles. And I think that is why this one could make sense, you know. Max he's still at the top of the division. He still only lost to the champs. The only recent losses are Volk, Max, and Ilya. No, not Volk, Max, and Ilya. What the fuck am I talking about? Volk, Charles, and Ilya. Jesus Christ. And it'd be a massive fight again. They fought, I think, way over 10 years ago now. Yeah, I think it was like 2014 or something. Both are now 2 of the biggest stars in the sport. Both former champs. Max is still one of the best guys in the division. It would be a banger fight, stylistically. It just is. I keep saying that, but it's hard to tell with Conor now, just because of him potentially being completely washed, and we don't know what he's going to look like or anything. But I would be excited for this fight. I think it makes sense next for Max. Coming off the Charles fight, coming off the loss. They don't want him fighting a grappler again anytime soon, you know. So, yeah. Conor, Max. I don't even need to explain this one. This next one is like, it was more hyped up a few years ago. People thought, oh, this could be like the biggest fight ever. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be anywhere near Khabib Conor, but it is Paddy. Obviously, coming off the loss to Gaethje, him and Conor both UK guys. They wouldn't do the fight over here, but they both talked about fighting each other before. Both said how big of a fight it would be, and it would still be a massive fight. You know, just because Paddy lost to Gaethje doesn't mean this would all of a sudden become a small fight that no one cares about or anything. This would still be a massive fight. Would be interesting stylistically as well. Obviously, Paddy would have a massive advantage on the ground, but we saw against Gaethje, maybe he doesn't even want to get it to the ground. He tried to strike with Gaethje and knock him out to make a point. I can see him doing the same thing with Conor, leaving his chin up in the air and getting chinned. So, I'd be excited for it. I do think the timeline matches up well as well. If Conor wants to come back in the summer, that'd be about 6 months for Paddy after the Gaethje fight. I think that's a realistic time for him to come back. I would have said he needs a bit more time off, but he did say he wants to come back quicker, and fuck it, if he wants to do it, he can do it. And yeah, Paddy versus, he only has 10 sub wins. Seems like he should have more than that. Paddy Conor, that would be, he's third. I got 2 more. One of them's kind of obvious. Even though this fight, I doubt it's going to happen now, I still have to put him up high, just because all the rumours have been Chandler and Conor. They got booked to fight each other, and Conor pulled out. I know he's fighting Ruffy, and if he gets knocked out by him, there's no hope for this happening, realistically. I mean, they could still be, but I don't know. Like, since they were originally scheduled to fight, he's lost to Charles, which is fine, Paddy, and then if he loses to Ruffy as well, I don't think that they could then do the Conor fight, just because the hype levels would be so much lower than what they originally were. But, who knows, maybe he somehow manages to win the fight against Ruffy, and then they do Chandler versus Conor, just because it would then be hyped up a lot more. But yeah, I feel like I had to put him in this high just because of, I feel bad for him at this point. Like, I'm saying he didn't exactly ruin his career with the Conor fight, because he was already way out of his prime and everything, but he could have made so much more money just fighting other guys instead of sitting out for 2 years. But who knows, hopefully he gets the fight, I guess. I would want to see, this is what fight I want to see at this point, just because I've been waiting so long to potentially see it. I remember I was talking with people in college about it. That was like 3 years ago now, almost. So, yeah. I'll go Chandler at second. Then first, I think Charles is the most likely option at this point. After last night, Conor was talking about he wants to fight Charles. I think the only other option for Charles would be Arman. And I don't know if the UFC would want to run that rematch back with the risk of Charles losing and then Arman having a title shot. I think that they'd rather do Conor versus Charles and then Arman versus BSD. And then the winner of that gets a title shot. And then the winner of Charles Conor gets. Well, it just depends who it is, I guess. But I think this is the most likely option. I think they could do it for the BMF title. Headline International Fight Week could be a massive fight. Everyone would be hyped. There's a real chance. Obviously, Charles could just do what he did last night, and that is the only issue I have in terms of whether the UFC will want to do it or not. But at the same time, we have seen him walk forward and just get cracked too many times to rule that out as a possibility. Conor could just catch him and put him to sleep at any point. But I would pick Charles. I pick basically everyone on here to beat Conor, except maybe Jorge and Nate, because I don't know, and maybe Chandler at this point. But I do think Charles would win. He'd probably take him down and sub him pretty easily. But I think it would be a massive fight. Well, obviously it would be a massive fight. Conor probably wants a fight like that. He was calling for the BMF. I think he was calling them boring motherfuckers. Or that was Nate. I can't remember. Even though I'm not even going to get into that right now. But Conor versus Charles, I think this is the most likely matchup outside of maybe Chandler or Paddy. But because Charles is now the BMF title holder, I think that's what makes this number one. I think the UFC, if they're going to keep the BMF title around, which they probably will for some reason, I do think Charles or Conor is someone that they'd want fighting for it, just because there's actual hype for it, which is why I think Charles is number one. But yeah, all these guys could fight him, and I wouldn't be surprised. Let me know who you think he should fight next. Maybe we get an announcement soon. I highly doubt it, because it's the UFC. They still got to announce the UFC 328 card and 329 card, which I guess would be the one Conor's on. So maybe we'll see. I didn't put Dustin on it. I know somebody probably will mention it. I don't think Dustin's coming back to the UFC. I think the only thing he'd come back for is maybe like a boxing fight against Nate or something like that. I don't think he'll come back to the UFC. There's no point doing it. I guess the money, but I think he's good for that for now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have retired when there were still millions there for him to make. But yeah, that's the guys that I think are most likely to fight Conor. Let me know who you want to see him fight. Let me know if you think he's going to fight, and yeah, subscribe. Thank you for watching.